Welcome. So you've brought us something really interesting today, something many of us, I think, grapple with, that quiet feeling,
Mm,
being around people, maybe even people we love, but still feeling this emptiness inside.
yeah.
So this deep dive, it's really about sitting with that feeling, trying to understand what's underneath it, and maybe finding ways towards, I don't know, more real connection.
It's that feeling, isn't it? Being physically present,
Yeah,
but not really there.
yeah.
You're in the room, but you've kind of checked out internally.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
you're just there in body, not in spirit.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to explore today, to be present with that.
It really resonates, that disconnect.
Yeah.
Sitting right next to someone you care about, maybe your partner or a friend, and feeling this huge gap between you. You might be talking, but the words feel, well, hollow.
Like they just bounce off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Surface ripples. Or you might touch, but it doesn't really connect.
Yeah.
You hear them, but you're not hearing them.
And there's a cost to that, isn't there? We miss the very thing we're often longing for.
Absolutely. We miss the closeness, the intimacy, and something else gets lost too. Sometimes our own sense of self feels a bit blurry in those moments.
Oh, definitely. And I think we get so good at ignoring the signs, that little tightness in your stomach or a heavy feeling in your chest. We just learn to tune it out. We, grab our phone, flick on the TV.
Anything to distract.
Yeah, anything to quiet that inner nudge saying something's off.
And that urge to distract, it's actually really telling, isn't it? It shows how uncomfortable we are with that emptiness, that feeling of disconnection.
Right.
Those physical feelings you mentioned, the tension, the fluttering, the heaviness, they're often not random at all. They can be the body's way of communicating what our mind is, maybe, trying hard to push away.
So it begs the question, what are we actually avoiding when we turn away like that?
What feeling is too difficult to sit with?
And it kind of makes sense sometimes, doesn't it? How we build up these protective layers.
Over time, yeah.
Maybe small experiences, feeling brushed off or judged or just unseen. Each one adds a little brick to this wall.
Exactly.
And maybe we learn, probably unconsciously, that it just feels safer to keep a part of ourselves back, to not fully put ourselves out there.
Those past experiences, they absolutely leave an imprint. Every time we risked being vulnerable and maybe didn't get the understanding we hoped for, it can teach us subconsciously to hold back a bit next time. It becomes this self-protection mechanism.
Even if it leads to feeling more alone in the end.
Paradoxically, yes.
Yeah.
But it's not always about the other person, is it? Sometimes that distance starts inside us first.
Oh, yeah. That zoning out while someone's talking. Or nodding along automatically when your mind is a million miles away.
It's like a preemptive retreat.
Yeah, like we withdraw before we even give connection a chance.
It's interesting how that internal checkout can act as its own kind of shield.
Yeah.
Because real connection, it demands our full attention, our presence.
Like just carry content.
Right? Especially if we're carrying around unresolved feelings or anxieties. That level of presence can feel, well, overwhelming. So we subtly create space, even if consciously we want to be closer.
Like being at that dinner party you mentioned.
Ah, yeah.
Surrounded by people everyone's smiling, chatting. But inside you feel like you're watching from behind glass.
Precisely. Everything looks fine on the surface, right? But internally, there's this feeling of being separate, an outsider.
That image is so relatable. The smiles, the light chat, and underneath, just feeling disconnected, like we're all playing roles, but not really touching.
That sense of performance versus real being. That's huge. In Gestalt therapy, we talk about avoidance of contact.
Okay.
And that doesn't necessarily mean avoiding people physically. It's more about avoiding the vulnerability that real connection asks for.
So we go through the motions.
We engage in things that look like connection, superficial chat, maybe thinking it's enough, but it doesn't feed that deeper need for genuine presence.
And often we don't even realize we're doing it.
So often it's unconscious. We don't choose to feel disconnected. These patterns just become ingrained. And we end up feeling like strangers, even to our own needs, our own feelings.
It's that discomfort with being vulnerable, then, that leads us to stick to the surface.
Very often, we substitute depth with something easier, maybe more controlled, like performance. It gives the illusion of connection, but not the real nourishment. It's not about avoiding people, fundamentally. It's often about avoiding our own raw feelings.
Which leads to that paradox, right? Feeling lonely, not because no one's around, but because we're not really present. Not with ourselves, not with them. Just being nearby isn't the same as feeling close.
Exactly. Proximity is just geography. Real intimacy needs more. It needs emotional availability, a willingness to be seen, flaws and all.
And courage.
And courage, absolutely, the courage to step into that uncertainty of being vulnerable, which leads us to ask ourselves, how often do we really allow that?
How often do we let ourselves be fully present? Take that risk.
Yeah, these aren't easy questions, but they're key to understanding the subtle ways we might be keeping connection at bay.
Okay, so let's dig into that a bit more. We want connection. It's like a fundamental drive.
Yeah.
But we also have these ways of pushing it away almost automatically. What's going on underneath? What keeps this cycle going?
Well, one way to look at it is through what Gestalt calls the cycle of experience. Think of it as a natural flow.
Okay.
It starts with a sensation, something stirs inside us, maybe an urge or a need. Then energy mobilizes, moves us towards making contact with something or someone.
Right.
Ideally, that leads to some satisfaction, a sense of completion, and then we naturally withdraw, kind of digest the experience.
Makes sense, like feeling hungry, getting food, eating, feeling full, then moving on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But very often, this cycle gets interrupted. Things get left unsaid, feelings don't get fully expressed, needs aren't met.
Unfinished business.
Precisely. And that unfinished stuff, it doesn't just disappear, it hangs around.
Yeah.
It affects how we show up now, how fully we can connect now. It's useful to think about where we might be interrupting our own cycle.
So maybe right at the start, like not even letting ourselves fully feel something, a flicker of sadness maybe, and we just push it down.
Or maybe we feel it. The energy starts to mobilize. We want to speak up, set a boundary, share something vulnerable.
But we stop ourselves.
We hesitate, we censor, that internal break goes on. And that energy, it doesn't just vanish, it gets stuck. It has to go somewhere.
Right, it gets trapped inside.
Exactly. And this blocked energy, it can show up as all sorts of avoidance tactics. We might say, intellectualize everything. Stay in our heads, analyzing feelings, instead of actually feeling them in our bodies.
Or throw ourselves into work. Use being busy as a shield.
Absolutely. Overworking is a common one. Or using humor constantly to deflect anything that feels too serious, too real, too vulnerable. These are all subtle ways we run from ourselves.
And by running from ourselves, we run from genuine connection, too.
They often go hand in hand. Then there's the whole area of projections.
Yeah. Seeing our own stuff in other people.
We take our own fears, our insecurities, maybe even desires we don't want to own, and we sort of paste them onto others.
Like assuming someone's judging you when really you're maybe feeling insecure or self-critical.
Exactly that. They don't really care. They think I'm stupid. They're definitely annoyed with me. We create these narratives.
And then we react to the narrative, not the person.
Precisely. And it's so important to ask how much of this is really about them and how much is it reflecting my own inner world. This is where trying to practice phenomenology comes in.
Okay, what's that?
It's about trying to consciously suspend our assumptions, our judgments, our stories, and just observe what's actually happening in the present moment. What do I actually see and hear?
So, with the friend who seems distracted, instead of jumping to, they're bored of me.
You try to just notice, okay, their gaze is shifting, they're fidgeting a bit, just the observable facts without the immediate layer of interpretation.
That takes practice.
It really does. It's about distinguishing our projections from the reality of the moment, and often, the reality is much less threatening than the stories our fear tells us. Our bodies are key here too.
How so?
That clenched jaw, the shallow breath, tightness in the shoulders. These physical signs are often direct feedback about our relational patterns. Where are we holding tension? Where are we bracing ourselves? Where do we feel unsafe to just be?
Our bodies don't really lie, do they?
They hold so much wisdom about these dynamics. And going back to that unfinished business.
Yeah, the lingering stuff from the past.
Those unresolved hurts, unspoken words, unacknowledged feelings.
Yeah.
They absolutely color our present interactions. It's like wearing tinted glasses we don't even know are there.
So we might react strongly to something small now because it taps into something much bigger from before. Like maybe if a parent never acknowledged your achievements, you might be overly sensitive to perceived slights or lack of recognition from a boss or partner now.
Exactly. That old wound gets activated. The key shift here is moving towards taking responsibility.
Which doesn't mean blame, right?
Not at all. It's about empowerment. Recognizing our part in the dynamic. Seeing how our responses, our interpretations, our history, how they contribute to the interaction, and realizing we have some choice in how we respond now.
And part of that is owning our projections.
Yes, turning that spotlight inwards.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on what are they thinking, asking what am I feeling right now? What am I afraid of here? What does this situation remind me of?
That feels like a big shift. Less blame, more curiosity about
It
ourselves.
really is. It reclaims our agency, and it requires developing a tolerance for discomfort.
Because vulnerability feels uncomfortable.
Inherently, it's uncertain, it can feel risky, but it's also the only real path to authentic connection. It's like building muscle
You have to work at it.
consistently. Small acts of presence, small acts of speaking your truth, even when it feels a bit shaky, each time strengthens that capacity.
You also mentioned retroflexion before. That sounds important too.
Yes, retroflexion is when we turn energy back onto ourselves that was originally meant to be directed outwards, towards the environment or another person.
Like anger turned inwards becomes self-criticism.
Exactly. Or maybe wanting support, but instead telling yourself, no, I have to handle this alone. Guilt can be a form of retroflexion too. Or needing to set a boundary, but swallowing it down instead.
So noticing patterns like constantly putting our own needs last, or saying yes when we mean no, or apologizing excessively, those could be clues.
Those are all classic signs. We stop the outward flow of energy and redirect it against ourselves. Recognizing these patterns, avoidance, projection, retroflexion, unfinished business, it's like getting a new map.
It lets you see the landscape differently.
It does. You start to see yourself, your relationships with fresh eyes. You realize these barriers, these ways of being stuck, they're often constructs, things we learned, things we built.
And if we built them.
We might have the power to start dismantling them too.
Okay, so recognizing these patterns is one thing, but actually lowering those walls, letting ourselves be seen, what does that really take? Where do we even start?
It starts with courage, I think. A willingness to step into that vulnerability we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And knowing it's a journey, right? Not a switch you flip. It's slow internal work.
And it starts with ourselves.
Absolutely. The way we relate to ourselves sets the stage for how we relate to others. If we're constantly judging ourselves, dismissing our own feelings, how can we truly trust that someone else will accept us?
So self-compassion is key.
It's foundational. Learning to be gentler, more understanding with ourselves. And part of that is acknowledging those unfinished parts, those hidden bits we usually push away.
Just bringing them into awareness, not necessarily fixing them straight away.
Exactly. Like looking in that inner mirror you mentioned, but with kindness this time. Curiosity, not judgment. Ah, there's that fear again. Or, okay, I feel that old sadness bubbling up.
Just seeing it.
Seeing it is the first step. But then comes engagement. Sitting with those neglected parts, those buried feelings, asking those uncomfortable questions. That's where vulnerability really comes in.
And that takes courage, too. Speaking our truth even when our voice shakes. Setting a boundary. Admitting we're scared or need help.
Those are powerful acts. They're assertions of self-worth. They say, my feelings matter, my needs matter, I matter. And doing that creates the space for genuine connection.
It's interesting, that idea that being authentic actually helps others be authentic, too.
It really does often work that way. When we show up honestly, it kind of gives others permission to do the same. Vulnerability can be contagious in a good way.
But it won't always be met well, right?
No, and that's important to accept. Not everyone will respond the way we hope. Some people might be uncomfortable with our authenticity because of their own stuff.
So their reaction isn't necessarily about our worth?
Not at all. It's usually a reflection of where they are. The focus has to stay on being true to ourselves, honoring our own experience, regardless of the outcome.
So how do we practice this in daily life? It sounds big.
Small steps. Consistent small steps. Like in a conversation. Try leaning in just a little more. Really listen, not just wait to talk. Make eye contact. Offer a genuine response, even if it feels a bit exposed.
In meetings, with friends, even casual chats.
Yes, those everyday interactions are the training ground. And remember the body. When emotions feel overwhelming, come back to your senses.
Grounding.
Exactly. Feel your breath. Notice the temperature of the air. Feel your feet on the floor. It anchors you in the present, gives you stability.
And you mentioned rituals. How can they help?
Rituals can be powerful ways to mark transitions, to consciously let go of old patterns or invite something new. It could be writing a letter you don't send, lighting a candle with an intention, creating a small personal ceremony. It reinforces your agency, your ability to create change.
It sounds like it's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. Healing, growth. It's not linear.
Yeah.
It's messy. But consistent effort, consistent turning towards ourselves with courage and kindness. That's what leads towards wholeness, towards deeper connection.
So as we kind of wrap this up, I'm sitting with this big question, really. Who would I be? Who would we be if we stopped hiding,
Hmm.
if we allowed ourselves to be fully unapologetically us, what might actually change in our relationships, our work, our whole lives?
Those are powerful questions to hold. Not necessarily to answer definitively right now, but to live with, to explore.
Yeah.
Because this exploration, it doesn't really end, does it? There's always more to uncover. Connection isn't a destination we arrive at. It's a practice.
A practice of presence, courage.
And self-love, fundamentally. It won't always be easy. There will be discomfort. But it's about choosing to engage with life fully, not trying to avoid the difficult bits.
So, maybe just for a moment now, take a breath.
Mm.
Feel where you are, right here, right now, and just know you're not alone in this. None of us are.
We're all just figuring this out, this messy, amazing human experience together.
And maybe that shared journey, knowing that, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's where connection starts.